so I started evaluating preschool boys. I've learned teachers in preschools have a very difficult time with the energy of little boys. Our preschools are filled with women, not men. And so they will automatically be in conflict with the energy of little boys. I got a lot coming to my office with the question of, does this little boy have attention deficit disorder? He's active, he's crawling under his desk, he's pulling books off the shelf. I mean, he's just not following directions. After evaluating boys, their fathers put themselves on my calendar. For the next 7 years, my calendar was filled with adult men asking questions about their own histories, their own personalities, their own characteristics. It was really eye-opening. There's a story to be told about the expectations that we have of adult men. We need men who are strong and capable. The question that this culture has to ask is, can we begin to open up broader possibilities for our males? They have access to the full range of emotions. And if they're not expressing them, you have a responsibility to help them.
An exploration of trauma, transformation, and triumph. Your healing starts here. And we are back with another episode of Through the Trauma Podcast. I'm Amber Larkins, your host. And today I have with me Miss Gloria Vanderhorst. Did I say that right?
You did.
Okay.
It's a tough name.
The names get me.
Yeah,
but
it's a tough name.
But this is going
I
to
married into it. It's not really mine.
Okay. Well, nonetheless, an exciting episode for you today, especially if you have young men or boys, you're a parent of one, or if you are one, which that's not our huge audience, but if you are one, this is an episode you're going to want to tune into because Gloria, she is a psychologist and she is focused in on helping young men and boys. So much needed in the culture that we're in.
That's right.
So Gloria, I'm so excited to jump into this and just learn from you, especially as a mom of a young boy. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
You're welcome. I'm thrilled that you are parenting a young boy because this will be so wonderful, so eye-opening, so supportive of you. So I'm excited.
Well, I know that I'm not alone. I have lots of friends who have young boys, and I just think that it's hard these days raising kids regardless. But I do, from doing this podcast and then just from having other friends and being a mother of a young boy myself, I do know that there's a lot of pressures that's put on our young kids these days, and boys come with their own set of pressures, just like girls do. You know, before we jump into kind of the nuts and bolts of this, like what motivated you to tap into working with young men and boys?
Oh, that's a fabulous question. So when I started my private practice, I started because I started working with preschool boys because I had a friend who ran a preschool, right? And so she would call me and talk to me and describe kind of the issues that the teachers, female teachers, all right, I want to make that very clear, that the female teachers were having with the little boys in the school. And so I started evaluating preschool boys. And as I did that, I've learned that teachers in preschools have a very difficult time with the energy of little boys. Little boys have much more energy than little girls. Little girls have a different kind of energy. Honestly, it's not that they have more energy. Little girls have a different kind of energy. Little girls are curious, interested, asking questions. Little boys are moving, right? They're
That's
using their bodies to ask the questions, to explore. They're jumping into different parts of the room, right? They're going under tables. They're moving chairs, right? They're using physical energy to ask their questions. Little girls are using language to ask their questions. Females are much more comfortable with language than physical energy. And face it or not, our preschools are filled with women, not men. They're filled with women. And so they will automatically be in conflict, be distressed by, be concerned, be uncomfortable with the energy of little boys. So I got a lot of little boys coming to my office with the question of, does this little boy have attention deficit disorder? Right? He's more active in the preschool. He's crawling under his desk. He's pulling books off the shelf when we tell everybody to sit down. I mean, he's just not following directions. Is that because he's disoriented? Is that because he has attention deficit? And by and large, the answer is that's because he's a boy, right? Not because of anything else. But at the same time, there were a subset of those boys who really did have attention deficit. And what I discovered is that after evaluating these boys, their fathers put themselves on my calendar. For the next 7 years straight, my calendar was filled with adult men asking questions about their own histories, their own personalities, their own characteristics. It was explosive. It was really eye-opening to be able to sit in the presence of adult men and learn about their histories, learn about their interactions with their families, with their fathers, with their mothers, learn about the expectations that the society places on them. It was marvelous. So ever since that, I have kind of held inside of me that there is a story to be told about the way that we relate to little boys and the expectations that we have of adult men, and how important it is for us to look at that and then make choices about changing it, right? I do understand that there has been a very good reason to narrow the emotional access that a male has to feelings. We use them in war, right? We have done that for centuries. We expect our men to go to war and to defend the population. And so if I'm going to put you on the battleground, I definitely want to narrow your emotional expression. I don't want you to have tenderness. But if I am going to marry you, I want you to have tenderness. You can't access it, right? Because the entire culture has sent you the message from preschool forward, do not access your tenderness. I tell families, go to the local mall, watch the interaction between parents and children, right? A little boy who's kind of playing in the mall and gets himself into trouble somehow is very different from the little girl who's playing in the mall and gets herself into trouble. The little girl runs to mom or dad. She gets picked up and she gets asked, what happened? The little boy runs to mom and dad. He gets asked, what happened? If he gives a good enough response, he will get picked up and receive comfort. If not, he will be just sent back. All right? Go back. No big deal. We limit the emotional access. We're born with full access. And the truth of the matter is that boys are actually born with a broader range of emotional expression than girls. Right? I'm going
Really?
to say that again.
Yeah.
Right? Boys are born with a broader range of emotional expression than girls. Gets narrowed almost immediately in infancy because the main caretaker is mother. Mother is very comfortable with the range of emotional expression that comes from a female. But from a male, if it's more intense on the high end, irritation, more intense on the low end, distress, mother's not comfortable with that. And so she doesn't give it as much attention. And that teaches the infant, narrow your expression to the emotions that will get you attention. So we have a we have a cultural experience that we need to recognize. And there's tons of research out there, right? The American Psychological Association has written a book this thick about research on men, boys, and emotional expression in early childhood. I mean, this thick, right? Nobody knows. Nobody pays attention. It's is so important that we experience the sense of respect that our boys need, and that we address the fact that they are different from girls, and that at a preschool level, we actually give them the freedom to hold on to their range of emotion, so that when they get older and they get married, they're comfortable with tenderness instead of avoidance.
What I'm hearing you say is that from early on, early childhood development, maybe even in the womb, there's things that happen, obviously trauma that
Right?
affects, but what I'm hearing you say is that these things follow these boys throughout life, and it's narrowing them or making them think in a certain way or be a certain way. It's like society and culture and parents even are molding them into something
Right?
that they're not necessarily created. They're created to be much more than what
Right. They're
than what we're.
created to be more expressive, to use the full range of emotional expression. I'll
So,
give you a really good example.
well, I'm
Can I give you an
curious, like,
example?
yeah, I want to hear your example, but maybe you're going to answer this question, but I'm just curious how this we're seeing this crumble in our culture and in our society now.
Right. Absolutely. Right. So the example I want to give you will illustrate what happens now. When my daughter was 3, we had good friends in the neighborhood that had a 3-year-old boy. So we spent a lot of time socializing with them. And so one day we were at their house. The adults are talking very pleasantly. The kids are playing over in another part of the room. And my daughter took his favorite toy and would not return it, right? And he made an effort to get his toy back. She would not return it. And so he started to cry, and he walked towards his parents to complain legitimately, right? He should go ask for help, right? She won't give me my toy back. It's my toy. He walks towards his parents to complain. His father backhands him in the chest and lands him on his butt. Stop crying. That is so typical of the expectation that we have of little boys. Do not cry. And so when you send that message to a child at 3, right? Children think in black and white. Yes, no, right, wrong. I am immediately, as a little boy, going to think crying is wrong. And so I will work hard never to do that again, because I do not want to get slapped in the chest and knocked on my butt. We do that to our male children, maybe not that harshly, but just in terms of, stop crying. We don't do that to a little girl. To a little girl, we say, "What's wrong?" To a little boy, we say, "Stop crying. Tell me what happened."
Yeah, or boys don't cry. You hear parents say that boys aren't supposed to cry.
Boys don't cry.
But I've often wondered about this as well because this is something I give a lot of thought to. My son, he's my firstborn. When I had him, I was an only child. I didn't have brothers and sisters. I didn't know anything about raising kids.
Mhm.
I never really even wanted kids, but when I had him, I did want him. Like we
Yeah,
tried for
sure.
him.
Right.
But up to the point of when I started trying to get pregnant, I didn't want kids before that. So I
Okay.
had not done a lot of research or
Right.
understood anything. And I was older when I had my son. I was 32
Mhm.
and 35 when I had my daughter. I think mom guilt comes in here too because you're like, I should have known. I should have known. But there was lots of mistakes as parents that we make with kids. But those mistakes make you rethink, like as you see things happening in your kids, and not just in your kids, but you watch older kids, or you watch how men are in society. And
Mm-hmm.
you're like, okay, how can I raise my son to be a respectable person in society? And so you analyze these things, is what I'm trying to say. At least that's what I did.
Right. It's a very difficult process.
It's so difficult.
Yeah, first of all, there are a few places where high school students are given the assignment of taking care of a baby, all right?
I've seen these
And,
before.
that might be a potato, right? It
Or a
might be a
doll.
sack of flour,
Yeah.
right? Or an apple. Usually it is something that can be bruised or will deteriorate if you don't pay attention to it. All right. So typically it's really not a doll. It is something
Gotcha.
that you could harm if you don't pay attention to it. And so that's kind of fun. That's really kind of cute and it's helpful, but it doesn't really address the cultural need to figure out if we want males who remain in touch with the full range of their feelings, or if we just want males that we hold in abeyance to use them for war, because that's really what we have done historically, is that we need men who are strong and capable of defending us and protecting us. And that's been true since the Stone Age, right? The male goes out to kill and bring food back into the cave for survival. The question that this culture has to ask is, are we still in the Stone Age, or can we begin to open up broader possibilities for our males? And it's a question that we're asking right now.
But just because life was different in the Stone Age versus now, it's evolved, but there's still different. There's still different. There's these same principles, but still just different ways of executing them, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So
Hmm.
I think that this is my opinion, but I think that we still need men to be extremely masculine and to have that kind of like brute force masculine energy. There's a need for that in our culture, which I think our culture has tried to crush
Right.
that. But then we also need the soft, sensitive side.
Correct.
And I thought about this a lot, but I wonder if we fast forward to grown-ups, in relationships, like men and women, when they get married, they need to have specific roles. And as a woman, it's like you are the softer counterpart, but you almost need to be that safe place for the man in your life. So I've contemplated these dynamics a lot because I've
Hmm.
just been really curious about it. But before we jump so far into that,
Right.
I want you to talk a little bit about your advice, what you would give maybe to a mom. Now we have lots of single moms that are raising young boys, and it's forcing these moms to kind of be like the masculine and the feminine side of the dynamics of trying to be the whole part for their kid. How do you see this changing like a young man that's growing up in this where maybe dad's not around, or maybe dad works all the time, or maybe mom and dad neither one are around. Like,
Right.
what are the effects of these things that we're seeing as they grow up or grow
Yeah.
into teenagers even?
Yeah. That's really a good question, right? Because there are several different circumstances whereby the boy really doesn't have access to men. It could be a single mom. It could be that dad just works constantly, and that when dad's home, he checks out or he's just not available. And placing our children in extracurricular activities and places where they can get that mentoring becomes very important. The Boys and Girls Club is a place that I just really treasure. I think they do a tremendous job to help boys and girls, but I'm particularly interested in the models that they provide for boys and the support that they provide for boys. And I know there are other organizations out there too that are really caring about giving more exposure to children who don't have access to that father model, or whose father model is so busy or isolated that they don't develop a relationship. sports obviously is a substitute for that type of relationship. We could talk a bit about the fact that maybe it's not an ideal substitute, but it does provide some mentoring that boys need.
Absolutely. I think I always try to tell my coaches, my boys' coach, my son's coaches, thank you, because I don't know that they truly realize how important their role is in these boys' lives as a coach.
Mhm,
I see that as a mom, and I'm very grateful for that, and I'm grateful that he likes to do sports
mhm.
because it's challenging. We're in a divorced home,
Okay.
so
And
that's
that is a challenge.
that is a challenge. I mean, he has a relationship with his father, but still, when you're home and they're home with you all the time, or they have friends over, and it's like now there's not someone that's like, this is how
Mhm.
it's gonna be. Mom has to come in and be the bad guy or
Right.
the authoritarian, and it can be challenging. So let's move into like the teenage years. I want you to talk a little bit about, do you see problems with the young men like manifesting in those teenage years that started early on? And if so, what are the things that we can do as parents or people that have access to kids as coaches or teachers? What can we do to facilitate a better experience to where when these kids get to this age, we live in a social media age. Kids are being influenced by music, by media, by TV, by all these, and by other kids, which are also influenced by these
Right.
things. So, what can we do with what we have, the resources that we have now to help our young?
So if we look first, just developmentally, all right, at the preschool level, boys and girls are open to a broad range of influence. You can make a real significant contribution to the emotional development of a boy or a girl in that preschool range, all right? By exposure, by the way that you relate to them, by the structure that you provide for them. The next opportunity for that is actually adolescence, right? Adolescent boys and girls. It's the developmental place where suddenly their brain is open again.
In adolescence, what would you describe? What's the age?
Oh, I would start it at 12, though. If you look at it in terms of the range of puberty, it could start as early as 8. But I would say kind of
Going to what age?
majority, we're looking at around 12 years of age when the chemistry changes, your body starts to change. I
So you would
remember a
consider,
friend in college who would describe the summer that she hit puberty, and she said, "That summer, I just laid on my bed and grew." Right? From like 4 feet to 6.
so
It
do
was
you
just like
consider
magical.
adolescence and teenage years
Yeah.
interchangeable? Okay.
Yeah. So that in that age range is the ideal opportunity to kind of reinvent themselves, to re-expose themselves, all right? They're vulnerable, they're open. And so that's an ideal opportunity to help boys and girls re-access the full range of emotions. And you do that by the schools, I think, have done a very good job of this in terms of exposing or requiring teens to have community service hours, which means they have to expose themselves to different cultures, different needs in the society. Let me go pick up trash in the creek or volunteer at a retirement home. Let me get exposure to the full range of what it means to live in this world. So I think the community service hours have been incredibly helpful emotionally for teenagers, but it is the ideal time to restructure. What are you capable of? Is it all right for a boy to be hurt and to cry as a 12, 13-year old? And if so, how do we support that as a teacher? How do we support that as a mother? How do we support that as a father? It is critical that we facilitate expanding the emotional range that a male can experience. And that's the ideal time to give them that validation, to give them that support.
And how would you recommend, like if you were talking to a parent here, um, to do that? Just allow them the space and then to teach them about emotion, how to manage
It's a
emotions?
little more than that. So let's look at kids are involved in all kinds of activities, tons of sports activities, musical activities, all right, robot building activities. They have success, they have disappointment, they have failure. I want to validate the negative. And so many times we do not. So many times we just do, oh, next time it'll be better. Right. It's okay if you struck out, right? You'll do a better job next time. We do not validate that negative. All right. Of course you're hurt. Of course you're sad. It's all right to be hurt, to be sad, to be disappointed, to be demoralized, right? If you're a wrestler, there's no other place to get demoralized more than being a wrestler, right? If you're a wrestler and you get pinned in front of a crowd of people, that's demoralizing. I want to give that boy comfort. That was horrible. That had to feel awful. I want to validate his feelings. I don't want to just slap him on the back and say, you'll do a better job next time.
So, what happens if you have a young man who won't let you into his feelings? Like if he says, oh, like, it's fine, that didn't bother me.
But you persist, okay? Not in that moment, not in terms of overwhelming him, but the next time you validate the same thing. The next time you validate the same thing. He will eventually let you in. He really will. He will
Is it
eventually let you in.
is it normal for young boys, teenagers, especially teenage boys, to be a little more like, I'm not going to share my feelings or I'm
A
not
lot
going to
more.
talk to mom?
Yep, it is normal for them to be a lot more protective. And that doesn't mean that you stop validating what you actually see and experience. You reflect what you see and experience happening with that boy. I can see it on your face, right? You really have been shamed. I'm sorry for that.
Yeah. What? Okay, so I'm going to switch gears here for a
Hmm.
second, but I am very curious about this just as a parent myself, okay?
Right, sure.
And as kids that are getting ready to enter into these hormonal changes,
Hmm.
how do you have advice for how you talk to your kids about sex?
Openly, honestly, transparently, and with your own fear, right? And your own history. So, sharing your own history is really valuable. How were you educated? What did it feel like to be educated in that way? What are the questions you had that didn't get answered? What are the questions that you had that got answered by a peer and kind of weren't right on target?
Uh-huh.
Right? We're a bit naive.
Uh-huh.
So it's being willing to take the risk and expect the discomfort in your adolescent and not let that discomfort stop you. It should pause you, right? I want to track the discomfort of my adolescent and I want to go to the edge of their discomfort and then I want to drop it. But the next time I want to go back to the edge of their discomfort, the edge will change, right? And they'll begin to trust me to the point that they come to me with these questions or with these experiences. All right. Of this happened in the locker room, or I have this girl that I'm really interested in, and I have the slightest idea how to approach her. But you have to have your own courage to say, want to be connected to this child through adolescence, because adolescence is a struggle, right? It's a discovery, it's a stressor, it's a joy, but I need a resource. So as a parent, I want to be that resource.
So what happens when you have, so especially around the sex conversation, right? You have a lot of boys that are just entering, they're just trying to like figure things out. It's almost funny. It's like farting. Boys think that's funny, right? I see a big difference in my son versus my daughter in these kinds of conversations. And just kind of like there's a little more vulgarity when it comes to these kinds of things with
Yep.
boys. But when you have something that is almost like made to be a laughing matter, but it's really not, it's more of a very serious topic. Do you have advice for shifting that for parents?
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like to
Yeah.
shift
The,
that from?
the laugh is discomfort. All right. So first I want to legitimize the laugh. Okay, it makes sense to me. That brings up a giggle or a laugh. And I can see on your face that the message is this is awkward, this is uncomfortable, this kind of is silly, and you'd like to avoid it. I want to legitimize the feeling experience that they're having. And then I want to go just a little bit further, not this far, right? I want to go just a little bit further. Right? So even if I say, I'm glad that you were just willing to listen to me, even if it brought up all of this silliness, that's important for the two of us, right? We have a connection. We don't have to go any further today. We have a connection. We can keep talking about this.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know, like with my son, we have a pretty open conversations about things. But he has a very high sense of humor, like a very funny sense of humor. He's always been that way since he was a little kid.
That's great.
And sometimes I'm just like, oh my God, he's sharing way too much. So my mommy ears don't want to hear that.
That's
But
great.
at the end of the day, you're like, I really am grateful that at least we have that open dialogue
Mhm.
because I don't know that he has that with other people.
Right.
And, I feel like sometimes when have your kids early 20s, they're easier to relate maybe to those parents that are a little bit younger. I'm not that young,
Right.
so there's a huge age difference in between us. So I'm very grateful for that. But to say it's not a challenge but parenting is a challenge.
Parenting is a challenge. It has always been a challenge. It always will be a challenge. But I love what you said, right? That at the end of the day, there can be connection. No matter what has happened, there can be connection. And that's a sense of real security for your son that you're trustworthy, that you're going to be there at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, that's good to know because as a mom, you beat yourself up a lot of times. You're like, I should have done this better, that better, or this better. And then you see certain things that you're like, I really wish that I could restructure. I'll give you an example. Like honestly, letting my kids have more access to social media and to electronics in general.
Right.
And then, I think as parents, you'll try to navigate through your own life. You got your
Right.
own stuff going on, and it's so easy. And I do hope that like younger parents will listen to this. Parents with younger kids, what I'm trying to say, will listen to this. And I always tell people like my best advice is keep them off the electronics as long as possible. Because as soon as you open that door, it creates like an addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for myself, it's a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on social media for the podcast and
Right.
for my business, but it's a challenge for me not to get sucked into that. And
Mm-hmm.
as kids, I think it's just really challenging. Do you have advice for how to parent through electronic addiction, video games? Video games is a big thing for young boys for sure,
For
and just
sure.
social media in general, because these are huge influences in their lives as well.
It's a huge challenge, right? It is the world that we live in. And the only way to address it is to put time limits on it. If we're not courageous enough as parents to put time limits on it, our children will be there constantly. And the reason for that is that it really is an addictive process. It gets us into one particular part of our brain that just really likes that repetition, right? To do the same thing over and over and over and over. It's comfortable. It's safe there. But in the long run, it's not healthy for the rest part of my brain, right? My prefrontal cortex is not working at all when I'm doing these online games. So the very best that any parent can do is to set time limits on it and to be aware of the type of games that your child is tapping into,
Which is
right?
a big
I don't
problem.
want a 6-year-old doing war games.
Yeah. Well, and even still, there's technology is expanding so quickly
Hmm.
that we have this issue, and I've found this as a parent as well, where I don't know, I don't even know the dangers that's online. It's like, how much can you actually research? And then if you do research, how much does this change in the next month or the next year or the next 5 years? These
Hmm.
things are changing so rapidly
Right.
that it's difficult.
And even more than that, right? Every child has a cell phone. So two people sitting next to each other on the bus are texting each other. They're not talking to each other. Think about the impact of that.
Yeah, yeah. I see it when kids have sleepovers.
Yeah,
Like when we have guests over and it's like you want a sleepover, you want to have a friend over so you guys can stay up late and
right,
but what? Why? You want to be on
right,
your phones constantly. I
right.
don't understand that.
It should be a policy to leave your phone at the door when a friend is visiting, really.
Yeah, yeah. You really, really should. There's so many things that this topic is so vast. And I
It
think
is.
for anyone who's a parent is probably like we could probably sit and talk all
Yeah,
day
they have
about
thousands of
questions.
examples.
But I do know like before we start closing up and this time goes by so super fast. But I do want to ask you like where do people find you? Where are you out of? Where are you located?
So they could find me on my website, and the website is www.drvanderhorst.com. So it's www.drvanderhorst.com. The website has easy access to tons of resources. All of my blogs are posted there. I have videos of different approaches to therapy posted there. You could make time to meet with me there.
You do your meetings through Zoom.
Really good resource.
Do you do your meetings through Zoom?
Yes.
So you don't have to physically be there.
No, actually, since COVID, all of my work has been online and it's been very effective. It is true that in an online meeting, you miss the body. And as Bessel van der Kolk has said in his book, the body keeps the score. So you miss experiencing the entire body. And so I find that I frequently ask people, what are you feeling in your legs? What's your foot doing? What are your hands doing? So that I get a response from the body parts that I really cannot see.
How interesting. And you are taking new
Yes, I
clients
would
or
be
patients.
happy to talk with people.
Well, all of that information will be in the show notes for sure. But I want to just kind of open the floor to you and I want you to speak directly to my audience, to those that, again, probably the audience you're going to be speaking to is mostly moms of these, young boys or grandparents. But what would be like a big takeaway you would want to leave my audience with?
I would really like them to know that raising a boy is an honor and that it's so important that you help that boy get access to the full range of his emotions. He's emotionally brilliant, and we culturally have told him that he is not emotionally brilliant. And so then we put him in a position of marrying, developing an intimate relationship with another adult, and not having access to the full range of his feelings. So I would just encourage you to learn more about the full range that your boy is capable of and encourage that. If that means you have to tease him or poke him or have some very direct, intimate conversations with him and challenge him, do it, because it will pay off in the long run to help him to open up to all of the feelings that he was born with. I have a feelings sheet that I send out to people. It must have 300 different feelings on it. And the reality is that even though men cannot produce a feeling, if you have them run through that list, the feeling word will just pop out. We never lose access to our feelings. They still have access to the full range of feelings. They can recognize what they're feeling. They just can't produce it. So if you're struggling with a boy, trying to help the boy figure out what he's feeling, get a feelings list,
So,
right? Put that in front of him.
so I think I'm hearing you say this as well, coupled in with that, is that if you have, say, a dad that's listening to this, or even just a man who knows
Right.
that they have childhood, they've kind of, I don't know if it would be called childhood trauma. I think probably in some instances,
It is a
yes.
form of trauma. To be cut off from the feeling range is a form of trauma.
So if you have a man who's listening to this now, there is hope that he can regain
Oh,
these
yes.
emotions. And what does it take for someone to kind of regain and come back around and to restore those feelings and that full range of feelings?
It takes interest, right? I want to be curious to re-access the full range of emotions that I was born with. And then it takes putting yourself in a place where you can do that work. So if that means therapy, if that means reading, if that means just kind of getting a feeling list for me and using it on a daily basis to expand your feeling vocabulary and your feeling sense of yourself, then do that. It's possible.
Now, this feeling sheet, is that a free resource that you have on
That's a
your
free
website?
resource that I have. If you send me an email, I'll be happy to send it to you.
Okay. So all of that I'll put in the show notes for everyone listening. But what an amazing thing that you're doing, and it's so needed in our society and in our culture, because I think that these kids that are coming up, obviously they're the next generation. It is up to us to create in them the emotions. I think is a big thing that's just not taught to kids in
Right.
general, and it really needs to be more taught, because we do end up suffering from it and it's a domino effect. When you don't know how to control this emotion, and then it creates more emotions, it creates more trauma,
Right.
it creates more
Right.
disconnection. And so it just continues to go on as we get older, and that's
Right.
human nature. So very important stuff that you're talking about, and I applaud you for everything that you're doing in the lives of these young men and boys.
Thank you.
And your advice is awesome. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for
I've enjoyed talking with you.
it's helped me a lot, and I hope it
Good.
helps anyone else that listens. So is there anything else that any closing remarks that you'd like to finish with today?
I just want to encourage everyone to take a different look at the men in their lives. They have access to the full range of emotions. And if they're not expressing them, you have a responsibility to help them.
That's true. We're all in it together. So, Gloria, thank you so much
You're welcome.
for your time today. I really appreciate you and enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you for your time. I enjoyed it as well.
Hey there, friend. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending this time here with us on Through the Trauma podcast. Your presence means more than you know. If this episode has spoke to you or gave you hope or made you feel just a little bit less alone, then I would love it if you would take a second, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who truly needs to hear it. Every share, every comment, every listen, it all helps our message get out and reach those who truly need it the most. Healing happens inside of a community, and together we are breaking the silence and creating space for transformation. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. You are not alone.